The Crimson Impalers are a venerable loyalist successor chapter of the ancient and valiant Blood Angels created during the Third Founding at the dawn of the 32nd millennium. Down the millennia, this chapter has garnered a reputation for their savage mien and use of unconventional tactics, and were eventually given an ultimatum by their progenitors: lose all contact with their founding legion or change their ways. The Crimson Impalers choose to lose the support of Baal and become a chapter apart from their fellow chapters of the Blood. The Crimson Impalers were founded in the Third Founding by Vlad Rapthorn, a Blood Angel who was not born of Baal. Rapthorn was born on a feudal planet known as Walchilla, which the Blood Angels brought into imperial compliance. In return for solidifying his rule, a king whose name is forgotten gave his only son to the Blood Angels for ascension. Rapthorn was that son, and in his service he found more and more ways to distinguish himself to his superiors, especially the Primarch, for he felt inferior to his Baal-lite brothers. Rapthorn was an extremely competitive warrior and strove to master the blade in all its forms. During the Great Crusade, the vicious Blood Angel was seconded to the Night Lords during a joint mission as an interlegion emissary. Disgusted by what he saw, Vlad swore that he would curb the worst of these crimes as long as he could. This event led to the Crimson Impalers to having a dangerous vendetta against the Night Lord traitors in particular. During the Siege of Terror, the final epic battle of the Horus Heresy, Vlad Rapthorn fought hard as any of the enemy and as hard as any of the oldest heroes of the Imperium. At the moment of Sanguinius' death, the first vestiges of the Black Rage rent through Vlad, and the Night Lords on Terra would feel his murderous wrath. In the aftermath of the siege, the Blood Angels' remnants found a forest of Night Lord corpses impaled on twisted ceramite spikes, and at the center, Rapthorn sat upon a throne of the dead. Rapthorn suffered exile along with a number of his supporters. Soon after, Guilliman created the Codex Astartes, and the formation of the first chapters was initiated during the subsequent Second Founding. Vlad Rapthorn and his followers found solace amongst the ranks of the newly formed Flesh Tearers chapter for some time. At the dawning of the 32nd millennium, the High Lords of Terra authorized the Third Founding. The venerable Impaler Lord, now sealed within a dreadnought due to injuries, requested and was granted the authorization by the High 12 to form his own chapter on the world of his birth. His newly formed chapter would dedicate themselves to combating the Night Lords in their own arena. Terra became their allies, with Night Lord's champion being captured and returned to Walchilla to be impaled on great spikes in public rituals. Like all chapters descended from the lineage of the Great Angels, the Crimson Impalers are also greatly affected by the twin flaws of the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. However, unlike many of their fellow chapters of the Blood, the Crimson Impalers are very open with their Red Thirst curse, and over the last 10,000 years, the population of the feudal world have both accepted and deified the chapter. Every full moon, the people offer their oldest members, those who can serve no purpose and now await death, to the Crimson Impalers Fortress Monastery and have a communal mourning and celebration for the blood offerings. The two curses have another name to the Crimson Impalers. The Red Thirst is called the Dragool's Hunger, and the Black Rage is known as the Rage of the Janissary. Every Crimson Impaler's Astartes carries a power sword in the form of the Killage, the traditional blade of Walchilla. The planet of Walchilla is located to the galactic north of the Storm of the Emperor's Wrath. It was discovered and liberated just before Baal during the Great Crusade. The Walchillans who joined the ranks of the Revenant Legion found that their feudal world style of fighting was similar to the Legion's tactics. Soon, however, the Great Angel Sanguinius was found, and he sought to curb this violence and make noble warriors of his sons. The old Legion, Vlad Rapthorn included, attempted to be good for their gene-sire, and some successes were had. Rapthorn and his Walchillan-descended brothers still found themselves in the thick of battle, cutting and slicing with their power killages. During the Great Crusade, during a one-off joint mission between the Blood Angels and the Night Lords, Vlad and his team were seconded to the Night Lords and were disgusted by what they saw there. Following the events during the Siege of Terror, the Walchillan elements of the Blood Angels were exiled and later formed their Crimson Impalers chapter on their homeworld of Walchilla. Just as every other Imperial world, Wallchilla maintains a standing army, the Wallchillan Dragoons. However, unlike other PDFs, the Wallchillan Dragoons are highly trained, well-equipped, and possess a very familiar structure. This is due to the fact that 1000 years before, Alexandru Dennis became the chapter master. The Crimson Impalers helped rescue a Cadian platoon from an Eldari siege. In return, the platoon commander, an honorable man, swore his platoon to Crimson Impalers. The former chapter master, a forward-thinking man, asked the platoon commander to help refine and better train the dragoons, who were at the time a loose grouping of 7 companies. The platoon commander became the first Duke commander and began to restructure the PDF regiments. He found that the Wallchillans had a strong, ancient warrior culture and used this to create a deeply unique military force. The 7 companies became organized with central command going to the 7 company commanders called the Dukes of Hell. The first dukes named the companies after legends and great deeds their warriors had committed. Wallchillan Dragoons quickly evolved their style. The warriors allowed a measure of individuality, such as family crests, animal pelts, or gifts given to them by their loved ones. Promotions are earned by great deeds and mighty actions. The commanders are not only called the Dukes, but are actually part of the Wallchillan elite, with 6 of the Dukes being given control over fiefdoms across the planet's surface. The Prince of Wallchilla also leads a company, usually the first, and oversees military ventures, while the High Princess oversees more political affairs. The 7 Dukes are generally considered equally ranked, and when on a joint mission, playful rivalries layered with familial cooperation. While the Dragoon do not have the same resources as the Guard, they do possess some of the same gear, including Valkyries, Chimeras, Leman Russ, and a small number of Baneblades. The Dragoons are zealous, proud, and fight to the last man. They share many traits with more famous Guard and planetary defense forces, such as the loyalty of the Krieg, the honor of the Ultramar Auxilia, and the undying courage of the Cadian forces. Fierce, vicious, and bloodthirsty, the Dragoon are warriors deeply in tune with their ancient primal ways, committed to defending their homes and destroying their enemies. Each of the 7 companies have their own battle style, emphasizing the techniques and strategies native to their regions, such as the Crimson Cavalry using Rough Riders to hit their foes fast and hard, and the Steel Wolves overwhelming foes with tank divisions, reminiscent of the ancient battle wagons used before the coming of the Imperium. The Fortress Ministry of the Crimson Impalers is split into 4 separate parts, each the headquarters of the 4 circles of the Crimson Impalers. The Castellal Bestiae is home to the Circle of Blades and the chapter leadership, including the chapter master and all 10 captains. The Tower of Blood is found off-world on the Wallchillan moon and is home to the Circle of Rebirth, and where all Crimson Impalers start their journey to becoming Astartes. The Circle of Shadow is situated within the Dark Ridge Mountains in a great tower known as the Pillar of Twin Tragedies and contains many relics. The Crucible is a great and mighty forge, home of the Cog, the tech priesthood of the chapter. Castellal Bestiae is an ancient castle, once owned by the bygone lords of Wallchilla. Owing inspiration to the design of the castles on Old Terra from before the Dark Age, the fortress was used by the mortal High Lords of Wallchilla before the Revenant Legion ever stepped foot upon its surface. Following the conquering of the world by the Imperium, the fortress was overseen by the last kings of Wallchilla, of whom would give up their sons to become Space Marines, an honor owed to them for their allowance of the continued rule. At the 3rd founding, Vlad Rapthorn took his newly founded chapter back to Wallchilla and invoked his birthright to become the first of the Crimson Impalers kings to rule the world. After this, Castellal Bestiae was refurbished, equipped with massive anti-aircraft weapons, and expanded deep underground, where the Crimson Impalers spent their time in between missions, meditating and sparring. The Tower of Blood, where the Circle of Rebirth is based, is located on Wallchilla's moon. The Tower of Blood is where all Crimson Impalers are born and kept for their ascension before being sent into Castellal Bestiae. Centered in the thickest part of the Forest of the Damned, the Circle of Rebirth conducts their many rituals, services, and experiments here. Much like their brothers among the Blood Angels, they seek a cure for both rage of the Janissary and the Dragool's hunger, but grow no closer to a cure than before. Tall, obsidian black, and with deepened shadows blotting windows, the Pillar of the Twin Tragedies houses the many secrets that the Circle of Shadows has come by, including many cursed artifacts and chapter relics. It is here that the Whisperer of the Shadows, Corvinus, listens to the realm beyond and inscribes the names of Night Lord champions in the Chronicles of Vengeance. Rune carvings and anti-warp inscriptions line the walls, growing in number and potency the further one descends into the vaults within the pillar. At the deepest levels, the chapter's ultimate secret and shame is contained, the unkillable, possessed form of the former Lieutenant Tristram, sealed away so that he might never darken the reputation of the Crimson Impalers ever again. Other artifacts include cursed weaponry, the remains of armor used by Night Lords, and the grimoires of chaos sorcerers. Those who enter the Pillar of Twin Tragedies unprepared are found weighted by an overwhelming sense of grief and despair, the impossible shadows and twisting holes only deepening this dread. Deep beneath the surface of the planet's crust, close to the core, is the Crucible. It is here that the armory of the Crimson Impalers are maintained and ancient artifacts are kept until they are to be used again. The Lord of the Cog oversees the construction of the stakes that Night Lords are captured, as well as the blessing of the vehicles and weapons. The Crucible is a mighty forge, blistering hot and carved directly into the metal-rich stone of Walchilla, the glistening gemstones in the ceiling mirroring the night skies of Terra and the polished marble ground mirroring the night skies of Walchilla. Several giant chimneys belch smoke and soot into the sky above the blood-salt sea, which the Crucible lies under. The entrance to the Crucible rests in the center of the cauldron of an extinct volcano, known as the Molten Gate. As a semi-codex-compliant chapter, the Crimson Impalers do utilize 10 full companies in compliance to the dictates of the Codex Astartes. However, they make use of several specialist titles and formations unique to their chapter homeworld of Walchilla. Similar to the 3 spheres of the Blood Angels Legion of old, the Crimson Impalers are split into 4 parts, or circles, all of which fall under the command of the Chapter Master. The first circle is the Circle of Shadows, which is the equivalent to the Librarium of other chapters. The Circle of Shadows is headed by the Whisperer of Shadows, or Chief Librarian, and contains within it the task of maintaining chapter records, the logging of Night Lords slain in the Chronicles of Vengeance, seeing to the upbringing of both new librarians called Umbra Shamans, and to the examining of Space Marines after battles with particularly corrupt Night Lords. The current Whisperer of Shadows is Corvinus the Bloody, a ferocious warrior and astute scholar of the Crimson Impalers' history. The second circle is the Circle of Rebirth, headed by the Red Dragon and contains within it the combined aspects of chaplaincy and the apothecarium. Where most chapters separate the two, the Crimson Impalers' second circle is tasked with maintaining the chapter's collective soul and the chapter's stream of recruits, a task left to a single organized unit. Indeed, while each blood priest may have a preferred position, each is fully trained and qualified to be either an apothecary or a chaplain. The position of the Red Dragon is in the place of both the Master Apothecary and the position of the High Chaplain. The name is taken from the title of the first Red Dragon, who was called this by his fellow Blood Angels for his extreme use of flame weapons. The current Red Dragon is Antinous the Large, called this for his mountainous size and musculature. The third circle is the Circle of Blades, led by the Punisher of Deeds and the Blotter of Hate. These 2 champions of the Crimson Impalers oversee the training of Space Marines from their induction as scouts, called New Wings, all the way up to the ranks of full-blooded Space Marine, called Bloodwings. They rarely leave their fortress ministry, seeing to the many duties that come with their positions. The Punisher of Deeds is one of the few Astartes among the Crimson Impalers who utilize Terminator armor, as the majority has a great deal of unsurety in them. This is because the Crimson Impalers feel the need to fly, inherent need born into their gene seed more strongly than that of other sons of the Great Angel. As a result, a vast number of the Impalers are Assault Marines. When asked if Terminator armor would be an improvement on current war gear, the Crimson Impalers' answers were mostly, "I would try it once." The final circle is called the Cog and consists of the chapter's tech marines. Here, war gear is maintained and vehicles repaired. The Cog operates almost exactly the same as the forges of other chapters, with the additional task of creating the massive spikes that Night Lords are impaled upon. This circle is led by the Lord of the Cog, Sergei Razvan. Special units and formations. The Order of the Dragon. Elite veteran warriors who, having distinguished themselves as heroes beyond all call, are sworn in as the personal bodyguards of the chapter master. Equivalent to the sanguinary guard of their progenitors, these masterful warriors have access to the finest weapons, best armor, and relic war gear the chapter has to offer, and each has more kills under his belt than most will ever have. The leader of this elite cadre is the Blotter of Hate, Naculia Garridan. Due to there not being a sanguinary guard within the Crimson Impalers, the few glaives in carmine that the chapter possesses are used by the Order of the Dragon. New Wings. Recently inducted Scout Marines. They are mostly in the manner prescribed by the Codex Astartes, thought as sons of sanguiniers. They have the tendency to charge their opponents with combat knives when they get too close. It is as New Wings that these young warriors learn to harness the Dragool's hunger. All New Wings are distinguished by a dragon hatching from an egg on their right knee pad. Blood Wings. Fully implanted and trained as scouts, New Wings become Blood Wings, warriors equipped with jump packs and standard weapons. As all Crimson Impalers will power killages, they are not considered fully equivalent to Assault Marines, but can come armed with bolters, plasma rifles, and melters. In fact, all Bloodwings act as tactical marines until the enemy is devastated by the fusillade that the highly trained combatants lose. Once the enemy line is considered safe, the Crimson Impalers draw their killages and fly into the heat of battle, eager to whet their swords. Bloodwings are marked by a fully grown dragon on their right knee pads. The Uria. Named after the giant men of the forest said to protect spots considered sacred to the native Walchillans, the Uria bear a close resemblance to devastator marines of the Codex Astartes. The Uria take it upon themselves to shed their wings and become ground-bound, if only for some short term. Carrying heavy weapons and specialty charges, the Uria support their brothers, targeting that which could spell doom for their winged kin. Vehicles, artillery, and armored lines will face the relentless pounding of Uria formations, too distracted by the damage being wrought by properly target the Bloodwings. The Uria are marked by a golden mountain on their right knee pad. The Filles de Fier. Called the Sons of Iron in the native tongue of Walchilla, the Filles de Fier are Terminator Marines. However, the position is never permanent due to the reluctance to give up flying, even for its superb protection, by the Crimson Impalers. These warriors are chosen from the most skilled marksmen and close combatants of the Bloodwings, and equipped to withstand the harshest environments and toughest opponents. The Filles de Fier are often only chosen for these missions in the most dire circumstances, such as Space Hulk boarding missions. When not in use, Terminator armor is kept in the very heart of the Cog, under constant guard, relics of the Crimson Impalers through and through. On the right knee pad, Filles de Fier bears a silver chain wrapped in a circle. The Mistrunners. Another name for those Space Marines on the attack bikes. Their bikes are modified to be slightly quieter than the average bikes of other chapters, creating excellent opportunities for devastating stealth attacks. Despite not needing any markings, Mistrunners bear a lupine beast shrouded by mist on their right knee pad. The Strigoi. Dreadnoughts of the Crimson Impalers are called the Strigoi after an ancient legend of undead creature said to rise from the grave late at night to attack and punish the wicked from their committed sins. The Crimson Impalers interred in Dreadnought sarcophagus are fearsome warriors, each a legend of his own. The Strigoi are awoken from time to time, their brothers asking for advice and occasionally to feed them blood that is collected to sate the Dragool's hunger that affects even the Dreadnoughts. The Honorat. Meaning the honored, the Honorat are chosen to represent the chapter as the champions of the Crimson Impalers. They are given the power to pick ancient artifacts for his gear, armor, and weapons. They protect their captains and engage the champions of the Genius and Chaos. They are warriors unparalleled, armed to the teeth to kill. Most Honorat wield heavy-bladed power scimitars and small buckler storm shields to protect themselves and their wards. All Honorat have a shield and 2 swords crossed behind on their right knee pad. Stepani Lamay. Known as the Lords of the Blade in Walchillan, these Primaris warriors mirror the Blade Guard veterans of other chapters. They are violent, destructive, and cold-blooded. Stepani Lamay can cut a bloody swathe across the battlefield to strike directly at the heart of their foe. Whether Nighthowlers or a scalpel, the Stepani Lamay are a heavy-bladed knife designed to destroy with impunity. They wield similar gear to the Honorat, but with the heavy Primaris Gravis to them, greater defensive capabilities. Some Lamay sergeants wield large boar spears, power mauls or heavy broad axes to give them an even deadlier edge in combat. They do not leave survivors. To do so would be a dishonor on themselves and on the chapter. A single one is called a Lordal Lamay, or a Lord of the Blade. They are marked by 3 knives in a descending order on their right knee pads. Purtatori Antisi. The chapter's ancients chosen to bear the honor scrolls and the company banners. There has never been a case of the Purtatori Antisi dropping the banner entrusted to them. Purtatori Antisi are marked by a snarling lion on their right knee pad. Janissaries. The rage of the Janissary is one of the few signs that connect the Blood Angels back to their abandoned sons, the Crimson Impalers. The psychic imprint of the death of Sanguinius at the hands of Horus plays at the pit of their souls, threatening to plunge the Crimson Impalers into a maddened bloodlust, making them like beasts. In the eyes of the Janissary, they are fighting on the walls of the Imperial Palace, or even battling the arch-traitor Horus as the Great Angel himself. Those who are still useful are structured into loose teams similar to the affected Astartes of the Blood Angels Death Company, led by a blood priest specially trained to corral the frenzied Marines. Due to the equipment loss that is associated with the path of the Janissary, the maddened Marines are given chainswords instead of power killagers and standard bolters. The armor of the Janissary is painted black and red with a golden death mask to symbolize their death, both of mind and later of the body. Violence and death follow in their wake. Primaris Marines. Called more simply the New Sons, the Primaris Marines inducted into the Crimson Impalers took new form, new life, and became new weapons in the battle against the Night Lords. Nighthowlers. The various vanguard units of the Primaris found more than welcome home among the Crimson Impalers, who strike hard and strike fast. Incursors and Reavers in particular were quickly accepted, their preference for getting up close and personal with their foes giving them a quick edge. Called the Nighthowlers after the subculture of elite scout marauders who helped train them. Nighthowlers are exclusively pulled from the Lupi Negri population, their former lives as bandits giving them excellent experience to draw from. All Nighthowlers are marked by a blood-red wolf in front of a half-moon on their right and left knee pads. Solomonar. Not called Bloodwings, Inceptors and Aggressors are blended into a strange and dangerous combination, flying through the sky to deliver death with their boltstone gauntlets before engaging with the foe in melee distance. Named after the Walchillan myth of ancient wizards, said to create the tempests and hailstorms that would batter the world. These dangerous warriors are marked by 2 crossed ice blue axes on their right knee pad. The Circle of Rebirth. Blood Priests. The Blood Priests look over the physical well-being of the chapter as apothecaries and the spiritual well-being as the chaplains. Every Blood Priest is trained to carry out both positions, however, each one has his own preference over which he acts more as. Those who take the position of the apothecary more are referred to unofficially as the Red Surgeons, and those that follow the path of the chaplain are called the Soul Clerics by their brothers. The Soul Clerics that are trained to lead the Janissaries are old, highly experienced and much respected members of the Circle of Rebirth. If the Janissaries are too far gone to die in battle, the Soul Clerics use specialized Crozier's Arcanum axes to remove the head, giving them a quick, honorable death. due to the restrictions placed on the Crimson Impalers by the Blood Angels, High Chaplain Astorath the Grim does not visit this successor chapter, and the Crimson Impalers refuse the visits of the Redeemer of the Lost on the rare occasions that he chooses to ignore the commands of Baal. They insist that until Baal accepts the Sons of Walchilla as true sons of Sanguinius without prize, they will take care of their own in their manner. Primaris blood priests have recently been added to the Crimson Impalers, eager to make their mark on the world. The Worms. 14 blood priests chosen by the Red Dragon for their formidable skill as both apothecaries and chaplains. The 14 worms are given a silver spiring dragon on their left shoulder pad to mark him as an heir to the title of Red Dragon. Various tests are presented to the worms, all designed by the Red Dragon to mold them into proper heirs of the position. The final test is given when 3 worms remain. They are cast into the den of the beast to create their masks and to survive the mutated Crimson Impalers left there. When the surviving worm claws his way back, the Red Dragon passes on his armor and retires to become a Lawsi Morti, or to help train those who are to become blood priests. Lawsi Morti, equivalent to the Moritats of the ancient Legiones Astartes, these warriors wear armor that is colored white and black. The Lawsi Morti are Marines who for some reason or another pledged an oath to the Red Dragon and the Circle of Rebirth to give their lives in service. The Death Lords are armored like their brothers among the Bloodwings, but with stylized wings that swoop from their jump packs and wear special masks, half marked as a perfect golden rendering of their face, and the other a silver skull in a horrid grimace. Many of the Lawsi Morti are marked by scars, missing limbs, and mechanical repairs. Each is a survivor, and many among the Crimson Impalers joke that it would be easier to kill a god than a Lawsi Morti. The Ultima Linea. Among the Lawsi Morti are an even more honored group. The Ultima Linea are 24 of the oldest and most experienced of the Lawsi Morti, and when the Red Dragon enters battle, the Ultima Linea will be by his side, tearing through enemies with malice and hate tempered by pain and regret. Should the Red Dragon be in mortal danger, the Ultima Linea will throw their bodies in front of him, regardless of what is that which threatens their lord. Their weapons are exotic, some even more ancient than the armories of Baal. Master-wrought plasma weapons, bolt pistols with history scrolls longer than a man, and relic weapons whose original bearers' names are lost to the fog of time and prehistory. The Circle of Shadows. Umbra Shamans. The Librarium of the Crimson Impalers is a unique one. Each member who takes to the field tried and tested again the realm beyond in vigorous trials and tests. The Umbra Shamans are trained to wield the warp as a weapon unlike any other. When a seer casts his power out, the very shadows cast by the enemy surges out, gripping their flesh and armor, dragging them down and tearing them apart like wild animals. The shaman will cast his hand out, the black daggers streaking across the ground and slaying the foe without leaving a mark on the body. It is not unusual for a seer to shift his shadow shape, creating a beast only seen in the light to tear at the enemy's souls and minds. Some seers are capable of moving across the surface of the realm beyond to step out of the black behind enemy lines, a whole squad suddenly materializing to wreak havoc on the damned. Umbra Shamans is what the epistolary is called by the Crimson Impalers chapter. Primaris Umbra Shamans are slowly building their reputation within the Crimson Impalers. Penumbran Wardens. The equivalent of the Codicea is referred to as the Penumbran Wardens, and they finalize all battle reports and have access to the rarer chapter relics and records. The Keeper of the Scrolls. Lexicanums are called the Keepers of the Scrolls. As they are trained and grow more powerful, they maintain chapter records and help compile battle reports. Keepers of the Scrolls are occasionally called on by their Shadowseer teachers to help check on and reinvigorate wards that are placed upon the corpses of the Night Lords and upon relics captured from the Chaos Lords. Damper. Vanguard Phobos Primaris librarians are called Damper, after the half-vampire, half-mortal denizens of the night. These legendary beings were born of illicit pacts of witches to grant them a hold over mortal populations. These Damper are not born of demonic pacts, but they use their special blend of umbromancy and obscuration disciplines. They can produce the effect of being born of evil, creating hallucinations from nothing, diving into their enemies' minds with shadowy apparitions, and peering into their very soul to torment their foes with visions of their worst fears. Damper often paint their faces with black skulls and white spirals on the forehead. The Mare Strigoi. Umbra shamans too injured to be saved, but not quite dead enough to bury, are entombed in dreadnought sarcophagi and reborn as Mare Strigoi. Wise and powerful, it seems that when cut off from the world by their metal tombs, Crimson Impaler librarians only grow in power, as though their connection to the realm beyond is strengthened and deepened. Mare Strigoi have been known to use powers that living shamans could only ever dare to dream of, tearing apart an enemy aircraft squad like paper with barely an effort, tumbling whole fortresses down as though they were children's toys. Even enemies warded seem no match for the Mare Strigoi. It is said that if required, the Mare Strigoi could move a whole company of marines through the shadows behind enemy lines, and that were they to combine their power, the full power of them could tear the planet of Wallchilla out of its orbit and relocate it and its moon. Fortunately for the enemies of the Crimson Impalers, they are rare and are often only deployed in the most dire of situations. The Crimson Impalers are a violent chapter, scorching the earth and burning the sky around them as they tear apart the enemies they are sent to destroy. Blood and smoke follow in their wake, fire cleansing the taint of chaos and Xenos filth from the memory of the Imperium. Specializing in rapid deployment, fast attacks and total devastation, the Crimson Impalers do not take part in lengthy sieges and drawn-out wars, preferring to use their Stormhawks and Stormravens to cut a hole in enemy defenses and flood gates with their Mist Runners to drive back their foes. As the fast attack bikes push the enemy into bottlenecks and corners, Uriah and Bloodwing squads spring from positions to lay down hailstorms of firepower and land in the midst of the fleeing foe. Close combat skirmishes lead to hacked limbs and bloodied corpses strewn about the battlefield. Despite the chaotic appearance of the scene, the Crimson Impalers' approach to warfare is clinical and structured, designed to cause intense damage and isolate leadership for destruction. The systematic attack follows a preordained order, each step made to herd enemy forces into areas that will make further battle even easier. The first step involves infiltration, using scouts and Umbra shamans to smuggle forces behind enemy lines and into advantageous positions for surprise attacks. What follows is a massed assault using tanks, aircraft and long-range artillery, battering the foe's defenses and sowing confusion in the enemy. Once defenses are broken and the enemy in a state of disarray, the Mist Runners and Landspeeders rush the enemy, tearing into the foe and herding them into tight bunches. Finally, the Uriah and Bloodwing spring from the ambush positions and lay down massed fire into the tight groupings. Bloodwings will fly into the thinned herds and continue to cull their hated foes until none remain. The quick and aggressive approach to battle was inspired by the Wallchillan practice of foxowl hunting, an ancient and prestigious hunt. As a whole, the chapter draws the majority of its culture from the Wallchillan culture that they collectively stem from. However, there are also several subcultures within the Crimson Impalers, each with a single defining event that defines them as a whole. Chapter-wide practices include a special celebration at Sanguinale, where new Wing Scouts become Bloodwings and are fully inducted into the chapter and are treated to a massive feast, as well as ritual combat to strengthen bonds of brotherhood and sharpening their skills. At this great feast, the whole chapter gathers as the newly inducted Bloodwings enter the hall, now armored fully in their Space Marine power armor for the first time. These new brothers then circle the hall, receiving blessings from each of the captains of the 10 companies. Upon reaching the Master of the 4 Circles, they receive their killages from the Masters of the Blade, their jump axe from the Lord of the Cog, the Whisperer of Shadow, and the Red Dragon grants them a small beaded necklace representing the vows they took, as well as to protect them from the realm beyond. Other practices are collecting blood to create Vita wines, ritualized practice battles among brothers, and subtle customization of the armor and weapons to further the legend of the chapter. Of all the sons of Sanguinius, even the ones shunned enjoy a modicum of support and pride in that title, save for the Crimson Impalers. By decree of their parent chapter, the Blood Angels, the Crimson Impalers may only claim the title of the Great Angel for gene seed testing, and may never admit to being sons of Sanguinius to other chapters. The reason for this comes from the rite of the Midnight Clad, a terrifying and dark ritual performed on the still-living prisoners from the Night Lord's Legion of Traitors. The rite is a testament to the blazing hatred the Crimson Impalers nurse their entire careers. The ritual involves the human population of Walchilla, who are not shielded from the truth of Chaos's existence, but rather taught to hate, defile and curse it from their youngest days. Indeed, the more intelligent of the Walchillan people even know the vaguest of histories of the traitor legions. Firstly, the Night Lord captive is stripped of their armor and locked in public stockades, where the people may be permitted to beat at the traitor with whips, staves and stones. As the traitor is there, his armor is twisted and rent into the shape of a tall spike, which complex machine is wired into. Secondly, the naked warrior is strapped to a large stone, known as the Stone of Repentance. There, the Red Dragon intones an ancient chant, decrying the Night Lord's actions as a whole as cowardly, declaring that even the arch-traitor Horus was once a man of honor, but Conrad Kurtz was always a man of cowardice and a disappointment to the name Primarch. The Red Dragon then produces several tools and, with ritualistic prayers, removes the organs implanted that were once gifts from the Emperor. As he tears out the innards of the Night Lord, he casts them into the crowd gathered, where they spit onto the meaty pulp. Thirdly, warriors of the Crimson Impalers come forward, one the Punisher of Deeds, the other the Blotter of Hate. The Punisher of Deeds takes and cuts off the hands of the Night Lord and nails them to a massive wall where the hands have gathered for 10,000 years. The Blotter of Hate plucks the traitor's eyes and forces the warrior to eat them. These are symbolic atonements, one for the pain wrought unto innocence, the other for the pain enjoyed with the eyes. Lastly, the Night Lord is impaled, and with these descendants of the Blood Angels, this is their art. The impaling will not kill the Night Lord, only make his suffering immense. At this point, the Master of the Librarium comes forward, called the Whisperer of Shadows. He is to perform the last actions of the ritual. He asks the Night Lord 3 times to repent, and if he does, he will be slain instantly. Never has a Night Lord repented. After the 3rd refusal, the traitor's mouth is sewn up, and the Whisperer calls a bolt of red lightning into the ceramite spike, which activates a mechanism that will electrocute the Night Lord on a low setting, preventing death but prolonging his hellish torture. Once a Night Lord has died, their corpse is moved to the planet's moon, which after 10,000 years has been covered in untold numbers of bloody spikes. This macabre monument of savagery is called the Forest of the Damned. The Crimson Impalers are like all the sons of Sanguinius, plagued by their whole lives by a hunger for the lifeblood that flows through the veins of all beings. Most sate their thirst in battle, tearing their helms from their heads and tearing into the foe to suck out the red vitae that they crave. However, it is not always enough. The new wings must undergo a year of training and meditation before being allowed to take to the field as fighters in accordance with Vlad Rapthorn's instructions. In this time, it can be difficult for the young Astartes to cope with their hunger. As the Codex decrees, the Crimson Impalers obtain recruits in cycles. Every couple of years, trials and tests are run to create a large recruiting pool. Another ritual cycle follows shortly after the rebirth of the new wings. The population of Walchilla, who revere the Crimson Impalers, wander the planet's surface, gathering the men and women who cannot work and provide further assistance to their families. The elderly and infirmed who chose to follow this path are brought to the fortress monastery of the Crimson Impalers, Castellol Bestiae, and in the light of the moon of Walchilla, blessed and given a public funeral. When the morning sun rises, the blessed are gone, to be taken into the sacred castle, never to be seen again. When the blessed are taken into Castellol Bestiae, they are treated with the utmost respect, given comfortable lodgings, rich food, and are even pampered by serfs of the Crimson Impalers. The Blessed are given a life befitting their role, and when their sacred duty is to be fulfilled, the Blessed are taken one by one to be consumed by new bloods as they cope with the new craving. The bodies of the Blessed are taken away and buried in a grand mausoleum like kings and queens. They are buried with full honors and are even given an honorary rank within the Crimson Impalers. The Crimson Impalers are a strange chapter who recognize the strength and usefulness of Terminator armor but loathe to use it, citing speed and stealth above all else. However, scholar records among the Tech Brothers show that for several centuries after the Third Founding, the Crimson Impalers had little to no Terminator suits at all, a product from the rocky birth of the Crimson Impalers. From the beginning, the Blood Angels were suspicious and indeed distrustful of their cousins, claiming that their tactics flew in the face of the Great Angel Sanguinius's nobility, and as such, the Blood Angels spared every expense for their cousins. The Blood Angels allowed for only enough power armor and enough weapons to go to the Crimson Impalers for each Marine, and only one Terminator armor was given to Vlad Rapthorn as a status symbol. The armor was passed over to Rapthorn's second-in-command, the first of the High Sanguinary Priests, an Astartes by the name of Angel Croned. Angel donned the armor and had it decreed to be the symbolic mantle of the Red Dragon or the High Sanguinary Priest of the Crimson Impalers. The Red Dragon's armor is covered from head to toe in intricate details, including 2 folded wings above the warp generator, an iron halo that is shaped like a blazing sun. In place of the skull mask typical of chaplains, the Red Dragon's mask is bone carved into the visage of a monstrous dragon head. The left pauldron is covered in thick spikes, representing the Forest of the Damned, where the Tower of Blood is located. The Tower of Blood is the home of the blended chaplaincy and apothecarium, located on the small moon that orbits Walchilla. It stands as a great Gothic cathedral in the thickest section of the Forest of the Damned, where the oldest of the impaled Night Lords stand grouped. Outside the Tower of Blood is a statue, a gilded symbol erected to honor those killed, flayed and tortured by the Night Lords. The Tower of Blood is also home to the first and final entombing of Crimson Impalers in their rebirth and in their deaths. In a great subterranean vault, there lies a massive skeletal structure, the bones of a deceased creature from the time before the Imperium, a monster slain by the ancient kings of Walchilla. This is where the Red Dragon must go and carve his own mask from the bones of the dead and avoid being killed by the monsters that lie there. Those that succumb to the rage of the Janissary, the Black Rage, are cast into the den of the beast and left there as a trial of sorts for those chosen to be the next Red Dragon. Even in their frenzied state, the Janissaries are enthralled to those that are truly the Red Dragon, for through their frenzied eyes they see in the Red Dragon the leader who will guide them into the arms of the Great Angel and redemption. In order for a new wing to become fully inducted into the vaulted halls of the Crimson Impalers, he must take the 37 vows, the hallowed oaths that bind each Marine in soul and in purpose. These vows are taken before the throne of Walchilla, each one counted out on a set of ritualistic beads given to the new wings. Once taken, it is the endeavor of each Crimson Impaler to fulfill these vows to the best of their abilities before their deaths. If a Marine can fulfill the first 36 vows, he may be inducted into the Order of the Dragon. The vows are varied: slaying a Night Lord in battle, drinking the vitae of a Zenus, serving in the Death Watch, and capturing a Night Lord champion being just a few of the vows. After each vow is fulfilled, the Crimson Impaler will be tattooed with a symbol of his victory. The insignia of the Night Lord shattered, a Zenus skull, the Inquisition seal, or a stake wrapped by a rose above the heart. Some do not fulfill these 36 vows in their lives, but fulfill the 37th vow in their final moments. To the Crimson Impalers, this is the greatest vow, the one that should be at the forefront of their minds at all times. This vow is to sacrifice their own life in exchange for the life of a single mortal, to forsake their own mighty existence for the life of a single fragile human being. In the eyes of the Crimson Impalers, they are but a tool, a weapon of single use, worth nothing should the human race be laid low. Because of this, where others see the Space Marines as the ultimate sign of the God Emperor's favor, the Crimson Impalers see themselves as the lowliest of his servants. While the Impalers are considered the de facto rulers of Wallchilla, there is a mortal aspect to the ruling class. Called the Sisterhood of Rapthorn, the ruling class is made up of the mortal daughters of the ancient Rapthorn bloodline, who rule when the Chapter Master is not on world. When Vlad Rapthorn returned to Wallchilla, he found that his sister had taken over the throne and established a line of queens that ruled the world in Vlad's absence. When Vlad returned and invoked supremacy to the throne, he did not kill or demote his nieces, but had them continue their royal practices with the daughters trained in leadership and the sons either turned over to the PDF or the Crimson Impalers. The eldest of the Sisterhood is called the High Princess and is the regent of Wallchilla. Alexandra Dennis, the current Chapter Master, has been known to leave the High Princess in charge for extended periods of time. The Chapter Master Dennis recognizes that Space Marines are weapons in the hands of the Emperor, and as such, it is better if mortals let mortals. The Sisterhood is greatly respected by the Crimson Impalers, treated with incredible reverence. The 30 or so members of the Sisterhood live in the Castel Albestii, the religious members living in the cloister near a grand cathedral of the Gilded Throne. Aside from ruling the planet of Wallchilla when the Crimson Impalers are not present, the Sisterhood also represents the religious elite. The Sisters are no different than the other families of Wallchilla and have large families. The High Princess is married to a lesser noble, and they produce several heirs. The first 3 daughters are groomed to be heirs to the throne, and any that follow are given to the Wallchillan temples. The temples train these daughters to administer to the people, to conduct the many rites and even hear the confessions and concerns of the Crimson Impalers. The Sisterhood is headed by the Grandmother, who is the oldest former High Princess. The Crimson Impalers recruit from the native population of Wallchilla the sons of the Obis-Nui, traveling the world to the doorstep of Castel Albestii to partake in several trials in order to become Space Marines. As many of the mortal families bear large numbers of children, the sons that travel can be numerous. The trials involve staged battles, vigils, and genetic testing to ensure that the aspirants are strong and qualified. When the Crimson Impalers recruit from the Lupine Negri, they only do genetic testing, as the Lupine Negri are often trained warriors from birth. The gene seed of the Crimson Impalers is prone to the same mutations as their parent chapter, the twin curses of the Red Thirst, called Dragul's Hunger, and the Black Rage, called the Rage of the Janissary. The Crimson Impalers embrace the hunger more so than their other cousins, allowing themselves to drink more deeply of the red vitae that sustains and cools them. Many of the Crimson Impalers use the hunger to absorb the knowledge of combat and tactics that the enemy may possess in bloodletting rituals and mid-battle throat attacks. All the Crimson Impalers have developed their own tastes for which blood tastes the best, which has evolved into playful arguments among themselves over who is wrong and who is a true connoisseur of the taste. Another peculiarity among the Crimson Impalers is that of all the Blood Angels, the Crimson Impalers feel the call of the jump pack strongest, to imitate their gene father and fly among the heights and the skies. Because of this, the Crimson Impalers employ the largest number of jump packs known to the Blood Angels' successors, possibly even more than any other, except in the Raven Guard. 2 unique mutations within the Crimson Impalers create interesting effects among those who take the gene seed. The first is a strange reaction to the Wallchillan genetics, creating dark hair, pale skin, and yellow eyes that seem to glow. The second is a mutation within the omphagia gland, causing a seemingly minute change. The mutation creates highly sensitive taste buds, allowing for a Crimson Impaler to detect the slightest differences in the blood they consume. This has led to the various blood-drinking rituals chapter-wide debates of which vitae tastes the best.